Right, welcome ladies and gentlemen. I am 7draws6 and I am the DM of 7's Roll. And this is a little bit of a tryout video, something that I've been wanting to try for a little while. But pretty much in the last couple of months, I've been wanting to get back into homebrewing, creating my own stuff for not just for Dungeons and Dragons, but for, a couple of different systems. Dungeons and Dragons just happens to be the system that I'm most used to, that I've had the most experience in. And the thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to start creating content for that again. And I figured, maybe I can do that alongside people that want to watch these videos. So this is just a trial run. If you enjoy, by all means, let me know. That way I'll know if I have to do more of this or not. In the meantime, I'm also showing my face because why the hell not? Anyway, so this video is pretty much going to be me looking at one of my older homebrews. It's not that old. I pretty much created this for my own personal world for Mund'Aqturia, where most of my D&D one-shots are also placed. And this is just something that I thought up that I wanted to make and that I wanted to have some fun with. So there's also going to be a link to this in the description down below. This is made with GM Binder, which is a great website if you want to write up your own homebrew. You do need to know a little bit about HTML, I guess, to an extent, whatever. So I'm probably not going to look at makeup and how it looks during these videos, but I do want to kind of, just show you guys the process and what I'm currently thinking about with these pieces of homebrew. And I figured I'd start with something small. I figured I'd start with one of the races that I created back in the day. So that's pretty much what this is going to be. This is going to be me talking and changing up this race a little bit, because I do know that it's not that great yet. It's kind of this was the first version, and then I kind of left it for a while, and I figured might as well change it up, right? So let's get to the fun stuff, shall we? So the race itself, the idea itself kind of came from me being interested in shapeshifters and how those things work. Not necessarily things like werewolves, but people that literally can just take another person's, how do I say this? Can just change the way that they look into another person, so to speak. Now the Talei don't work like that. Because the Talei is more of a metallic version of that concept. The Talei are, to an extent, shapeshifters, but in a more mechanically sound way. Pretty much one of the things that I wanted to do, and you'll also see that kind of in the ability itself, is the subrace transformation is the big core different thing. I was trying to say two things at the same time there. Different thing that makes them special. They can switch between their sub-races on a long rest. So there's a little bit of lore here already that I've kind of personally thought of. Pretty much the Talei are creatures that have learned to enhance and change themselves through magic and through a little bit of artificer stuff as well. Which is one of the reasons you'll see that a little later, that they're an intelligence-based race. In base, of course. If you use the origin rules, you can change that. Because of that, the biggest thing that the Talei care about are intelligence, are knowledge, right? They don't do anything if they don't think they can learn something from it. As it says, kind of here in the bottom parts, most Talei can therefore be found within the library most of the time. And if they take up adventure, then that it's mostly because they want to find more knowledge. Now, of course, this is the basics of the race. This is not necessarily what every single creature does. There are exceptions. But the point is, they are creatures that can change the way that they look and the way that they are to best suit their needs. One example of an NPC, and some of my players don't know this, but they haven't really encountered the Talei in the campaign yet. One of the examples of a Talei that I kind of had in my head was, for example, an assassin Talei, who pretty much kills people by doing research on them. And one of the things, for example, that is widely known is there's 2 assassinations. One is an assassination of a dude just literally walking into a bar, kind of cracking his knuckles, and then just all of a sudden punching the shit out of like 10 people at the same time, leaving them on the floor for dead, and then walking out and escaping. And then a couple of months later, there's an assassination of someone getting shot like 3 buildings down by an arrow through his sternum, right? If you want to put this in class terms, kind of like, you know, the barbarian versus the rogue. Like, I made up an NPC that can literally just change the way he is, and there's very slight proof that some of those assassinations are done by the same character, making authorities to believe that there's a Talei that can do more than just change his shape, that can actually change his abilities, change everything about him. That's kind of the extent to which I saw the Talei changing themselves. Now, of course, that's not going to be in the race because that would be ridiculously broken and stupid, and let's be honest, it's just not going to do that. But that's kind of the idea that I had for the Talei. Now, I also made a little bit of lore, like the history, relatively basic, but pretty much just imagine there's a wizard who all of a sudden wants to find immortal life. And to be fair, D&D has several ways to do that. Things, you know, like the wish, the cloning spell is a very good example of that, right? You just clone yourself before you die and then all of a sudden you get reborn. Stuff like that. Turning into a lich, right? But he felt like all those things had downsides, like really big downsides. So what he ended up doing is he said, well, I am going to try to pretty much cut out the big problem, which was his body, right? He knew that his mind was strong enough to survive several hundreds of years, but his body was deteriorating. So what he did is he created his new metal body. I kind of imagine that this was kind of helped with research on how the Warforged were created, that the Talei and the Warforged are in a way connected to one another. And then at a certain point in time, he uses that research to move his soul and his mind to this new metallic body. And because his mind deteriorates a lot slower than his body does, every, let's say, 50 or so years, he does this again and switches to a new body and switches to a new body. Of course, the thing is, this doesn't go on forever. There's side effects, there's other things. He's not really able to really function perfectly at some point. And at a certain point in time, he realizes even his mind is gonna go at some point. And the moment that he realizes that, he realizes he's failed, but he feels like this research that he's done, A, should not go lost. He's an arrogant wizard. He, doesn't want his shit to go. And B, he feels like this is a possible thing that people in the future might want to explore further, to maybe see if this is a path to immortality. And so what he does is he comes up with the concept of now not just making a new body, but actually figuring out a way to make offspring. And out of that offspring, right, he mates, I guess you can call it. I don't know what the correct term is, and gets children, which, however, now are actual metal children to an extent. Not perfectly metal. It's not like, I have a screw here and a screw here and this is the only way I can move. No, they're actual functioning human beings, or humanoid beings, I guess I should say. But they work in such a way that they do have metal skin. They do have, metal insides, even stuff like that. But they are a fully functional humanoid, even with reproductive capabilities and stuff like that. However, the research of this wizard never really disappears. His children take up this research and then realize, hey, we can do this to ourselves too. But now, because of the side effects of the magic and because of some GM bullshit, I guess you could say, they actually figure out a way to just change their bodies without every single time having to make an entirely new husk. They can actually just change their own husk. And because of that, we now have the first versions of the Talei. And the longer the Talei went on, the more they were capable of doing so. That's the history behind the Talei that I've created for my world. Now, of course, if you want to use this, you don't have to use that lore. I don't care. But, that's the way that I've imagined the Talei being created. Appearance, humanoids of slightly smaller stature than normal humans. The reason that I did that is because I'm imagining that they were like created by an old like wizard who was like kind of hunched over, a little smaller, not the football player from college, pretty much. So they were created from like a smaller base, so they on average are just a little smaller. That's kind of how I imagined them. Entire body is covered in a metal coating, similar to the scales of dragons. But thinner and not, you don't have scales or something. They can choose to have that. They can choose to have like grooves and stuff. But pretty much pretty much when a baby comes out, let me put it like that, they're just one large piece of metal that moves, cries, and shits. So yeah, pretty much very basically that's their appearance. Now, of course, let's get to the interesting stuff, which is how does the race play? So the Talei traits. So let's start with, I'm skipping over this, but let's start with just the visual stuff. So the age, Talei do not seem to age because, they keep kind of rebuilding their body. You can actually kind of imagine that when a Talei goes to sleep, they go to sleep, but during the sleep, their body is kind of working to repair damages and stuff. You could imagine this with like, I don't know if this is in StarCraft, but like the little droids that like, finish up your buildings automatically. There's not actual droids flying out of their butt, but kind of their body does it by themselves. So the age, they can usually live up to 400 years, reaching adulthood when they become 18 because they were created from a human original, I guess. Alignment, they're neutral creatures. They don't give a shit. They just want knowledge on average. Again, these are things like, if you want to change that, by all means, go for it. I just put alignment here because that's what's standard in races. Honestly, if you want to make an evil Talei, if you want to make a lawful good Talei, by all flippin' means, go for it. There's always, Size, they're medium in size, ranging from 5 to 6 feet tall. Speed, base walking speed is 30 because, again, they're from a human original. Dark vision, they do have dark vision, 60 feet. They, how do I say this? They kind of grew that. At a certain point in time, they were like, we need to go into these underground ruins to get old and fun research. Maybe we should make sure that we can see in the dark. Yeah, that's pretty much where that comes from. Great minds, you gain proficiency with Arcana or History. Language, you can speak and read, read and write Common. I can speak. You can speak, read, and write Common in one additional language of your choice, kind of based off of Human again, and then we get to the subraces. I actually just realized that I have no idea why I skipped over the ability score increase. So I chose Intelligence base, pretty much. That's just pretty much what I started with, because I think they're meant to be an intelligent race. Also, I just kind of like the thought of having another intelligent race. Like the only intelligence races that really get used lately are like gnomes and high elves. At least those are. Oh no, actually, I think Thieflings have intelligence too. There's probably more intelligence races than I know, but I kind of just like the idea of having another intelligence race. I also might have just realized that there's a dot too much over here. See, I haven't checked this in a while. So they're meant to be an intelligent race. And then you have these sub-races, the Arc Talei, R Talei, Lik Talei, and Met Talei. Yes, the last one's kind of a pun. For those of you wondering where this comes from, Arg comes from Argentum, which is Latin for silver. R comes from Aurum, which is Latin for gold. Lig, I think, comes from Ligium. I'd need to look that up. Which is like, I think, Latin for branch. And then Met, just metal, pretty much. Well, technically, metallum is Latin for metal, so it still works. So this is really important because this is the big thing. You have the sub-race transformation. So each long rest you can choose to transform to another sub-race of the Talei, taking their ability score increase in abilities. Now this is something that I'm going to talk about a little bit in a second, but I kind of want to go through the base version of this. So the Arc Talei had a wisdom score increase. You get proficiency with the medicine skill. So you get 2 proficiencies off of this race, which is balance-wise is kind of similar to like the Tabaxi and the half-elves technically, although they don't really get anything else on top of it, so that might be a little too much. I'm not too sure about that, but I did want to give them a Arcana or History proficiency. I might switch that up at some point. And then Silver Poisoning, Poison Spray, when you cast, when you reach 3rd level, for some weird reason it says Leve. I have no idea why, so let's change that up. When you reach 3rd level, you cast Hellish Rebuke. However, it deals poison damage instead of fire damage. And when you reach 5th Leve, you also cast the Melf's Acid Arrow spell once per day. Why did I put Leve? I think I copied this or something. I think I've like been, yeah, I've put Leve every single time. What the hell is wrong with me? Okay, sure. The Artalei, they're the metal ones. So the Artalei are the silver species who are more like the healers. The Artalei are the golden species, and I've always kind of imagined like everybody likes looking at gold, so they're like kind of more the charismatic ones. If you have like a politician Talei, someone who's interested in the structure of politics and who wants to lead their country, again, out of interest, they're usually going to be a golden species. They're usually going to be an Artalei. Charisma score, and then when you make a charisma persuasion check to make a deal with someone, you can get advantage on your roll. Not really a fan of this ability, gonna be honest. Golden Friend, you know friends. You can cast Charm Person once per day at 3rd Leve, and when you reach 5th Leve, you can also cast Suggestion. Also, all of these have charisma. Might be a weird choice because originally it's intelligence. I'm also thinking of switching this back to intelligence. It's just, I'm not sure. The reason I kind of picked charisma was because I felt like it was more an inner ability that they got, but then again, technically they learn how to switch to this sub-race, so intelligence also makes sense. I'm actually probably going to switch this to intelligence. Lictale, while not being metal, the Lictale have found a way to cover themselves in nature and are wood species of the Talei, the more silent and deadly types. Pretty much the Lictale are the scouts, are the ones that go into the forest and hunt and stuff like that. They're those guys, right? So dexterity, proficiency with the stealth skill because of your silent wood nature. And then again, Druidcraft is a cantrip. At 3rd Leve, you get Hunter's Mark. And at 5th Leve, you get Pass Without a Trace. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself, giving people Pass Without a Trace for free, but hey. And then charisma is your ability modifier. Probably, again, going to switch this to intelligence. Finally, the Metale, they're actually the special ones. They are the strong warriors. Pretty much, if you would take the brunt of a Talei army, if you'd look at the infantry, oh my god, I can speak English. Infantry, the cavalry, possibly some other dudes, they're usually going to be, or women, they're usually going to be Metale. They're usually going to be made of metal. They're going to be the steel ones because those are the stronger ones, and they're the ones who also, you can also see this, have a steel body and steel armor. Steel body is completely based on the turtle, has an AC of 17, and steel armor, whenever you're about to take damage, you can use your reaction to roll a number of d4s equal to your strength modifier, minimum of 1, and decrease the damage by the total number rolled. They're the ones who can take a beating, pretty much. That's what these guys are meant for. Now, as I said, I'm not too happy about this version. There's a couple of reasons. I, at one point, made a post on Reddit. It's been a while. And talked a little bit about what I thought needed to change for this race. Or, no, I didn't make a post on what I needed. Asked what people thought needed to change about this race. And one of the biggest things that kind of came out is the fact that the one big problem with the sub-race transformation is the fact that technically your character sheet changes every single time you switch sub-race, right? Your ability score changes, your proficiency changes, and your spells change, but the spells is less important. Now, to be fair, we recently, I think it was with, it is with Tasha's, and I think it was one of the rogue subclasses, actually has the ability to change their proficiency. So I don't think that's too bad. However, I do agree that you don't necessarily want to make your ability score increases that interchangeable. So I'm not a big fan of this. So that's one thing. And two, I'm not a big fan of like having leve in my text. That's the second thing that I'm not a big fan of. And the third thing that I'm not really a big fan of is, at this current point in time, I think I'm giving them too much. Not sure, but yeah. So here's where we start switching stuff around, right? So I'm gonna keep the dark vision. I'm gonna keep the ability score increase. However, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to put up another page. And I'm actually gonna steal a page from the book of half-elves. And the reason for that is the half-elves have an ability score increase, which increases their charisma by 2, right? But then they can also change another ability score by 1. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this, and one other ability score of your choice increases. Your intelligence score increases by 2, and one other ability score of your choice increases by 1. And this then allows me to remove the ability score improvements from the other sub-races, which I personally think is a better way to do it. Because that way you just get your ability score improvements and you don't have to switch them, but you can kind of, pretty much this kind of goes to the versatility of the Talei, where they can kind of make up their body. The one thing, but I'm going to talk a little bit about that, is whether or not I want to add the possibility to change that, which I'm not 100% sure on yet. But still, so what we're going to do is we're going to switch up the ability score increases and just add those to pick whatever the hell you want. So now you can pretty much, you get intelligence, and then you get an additional ability score improvement. Now, I think that's already going to be better. Again, for proficiencies, I think it's fine, because the big thing here, right, is if you change up an ability score improvement, your entire stat block changes, right? Let's say, for example, that originally you had, I don't know, a 14 in dex and a 12 in charisma, right? Because of your ability score improvements. Because you were a Lig Talei, right? So now, all of a sudden, you realize, I actually want the R Talei ability to be able to talk to people. Okay, sure. So at night, you switch to an R Talei. Now your dex becomes a 13, charisma becomes, let's actually say that you start with a 13 in your charisma now becomes a 14. So now, if you've written all of your proficiencies and all of the scores of your proficiencies, you have to switch up acrobatics, stealth, sleight of hand for the dex change. You have to switch up persuasion, deception, intimidation, performance, and I think that's it for charisma. And then you also have to switch around the values of your dex saving throw and your charisma saving throw. That's a lot of work for something that a race can technically do every long rest. So you'd have to switch up you'd have the possibility of switching up your character sheet every night or every play day, which, you know, I can see how that's annoying. I think a proficiency, especially if you play with, like, you know, online tools, it's not that hard, to be fair. ability score improvements neither, but for like proficiencies, it's like you click out one ability or one proficiency and you click on another. Or if you switch to Talei, you don't even have to click one on. You just say, hey, I don't have proficiency in this anymore. Another change that I'm going to go for is, because I don't like this, is honestly, I'm going to switch this ability, the Golden Negotiator. Honestly, it's not that I don't like this ability. I think this is a fun little ability that can be put on races. The thing that I'm not a big fan of for this is the fact that this is a very limited ability, right? And I will admit I wanted the Talei to feel like a subrace that got new abilities, and I wanted there to be a use for you switching between two subraces. And the Talei are a very good example of that. For example, if you know that the day after you're going to start talking to the king, okay, sure, we're not going to do anything else. Let's just switch to an Talei for this day so I can talk to the king a little better, because now my charisma goes up, or went up, and I get this ability, right? The thing is, this is so limited. It's like, oh, when you make a deal with someone, it's like, and then your DM kind of has to decide, when is it a deal, when is it not? So I am going to switch over this ability to you get proficiency with the persuasion skill because of your golden visage. I don't know. I'll figure something out for that. I'm doing this live, so I had no idea how to type all of this. I'm just winging this. So, ooh, excuse me. So that's kind of the biggest changes that I at least wanted to make, right? I am also going to, because this is bugging me now. This is bugging me so much right now, because I feel like I've changed this at some point already, and apparently I did not. So yay. Here you go. That'll help. Yeah, so these are kind of like the changes that I definitely wanted to make. So this is kind of like the version 0.2.1, I guess. Now, one last thing that I'm going to do before I end this video and the first look at homebrew stuff, I actually there's something that I'm kind of thinking about. So I've talked about how the Talei are changers. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a page break here. For those of you who don't know how GM Binder works, you actually have to type in page break every single time you want to go to a new page. It's a little annoying, but it does, I think, allow the system to read everything a little better. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do this, and we're going to go to a second version. So what we're going to do is this is going to be the Talei B version, because this is the bottom one. Also, my mouse is broken. I don't know if you guys can hear that. And this is going to be the A version. So the A version is the one that we just discussed, right? Now for the B version, there's one thing that I kind of want to look at, which is this, right? Ability score increase. Your intelligence score increases by 2. Another ability score increases by 1. One of the things that I've been dabbling with, or thinking about, I guess I should say, is how interchangeable do I want to make the Talei? Now, first of all, I think switching subraces on a long rest is not a broken ability by any means. Because you need to know what you're going to be doing the next day before you can actually take advantage of it. A lot of people are going to pick up a subrace and not switch, right? That's one thing. Question is, how much do you want to let people switch around? Right? Now here's the thing. For the B version, I want to look at this. So your intelligence score increases by 2 and another ability score of your choice increases by 1. You can change this choice during a long rest. So a couple of things here, right? So what this would do is it would allow you to change your ability score if you want to. You don't have to. I think that is a better version to do it than having it be tied to like, oh, you know, you're a Lake Talei, so you get a +1 to Dex. I think that's better personally, right? Because here you get the choice. You choose whether or not you want to fuck up your character sheet, so to speak. However, the one problem I have with this is the fact that you only get a +1. That +1 means that now all of a sudden we have to start working with odd numbers. Now, I know that this is relatively min-maxy, right? Thinking about that, but pretty much in order to get a use out of a +1, you need an odd value in your stat, right? You're not going to increase a 14 to a 15, except in very specific circumstances. So there is that. The problem, and I think that's the big thing here, is this is only a +1. So if this were a thing, what I would do is I would change the intelligence increase to a 1, and your other ability score you choose by a 2. Or vice versa during a long run. Oh, wait, what? Why am I typing that over there? I have no idea. Increases by 1, by 2, or vice versa. So you can choose to have a +2 in your intelligence, +1 in something else, or vice versa. And you can change this choice during a long or short rest. Now, I will say that I don't like this too much. I think I prefer version A for that. But personally, I do think that this could be something to look into, which is why I did want to mention it. I think this is a possibility, pretty much. I don't think it's good yet, maybe. But I do think it's something that you could do. I think the +2, what that allows you to do is pretty much it allows you to pump a 14 to a 16 as you have to. And pretty much what you can do is you can be a Lake Talei who's very sneaky, right? And all of a sudden you realize, hey, we need to talk to the king. So you switch to an R Talei, you switch your +2 in dexterity to a +2 in charisma, and bam, you're way more equipped for this, but you need to have had a long rest in order to do so. That would be the way to do that, which, right? So it would require you to have prior knowledge of the next encounter. Again, I don't think this is broken by any means. I think it's a lot of work to keep track of. And the biggest issue that this is going to give is multi-classing, right? If you want to multi-class, it's like, well, what do you look at for multi-classing, right? If you need a 13 in a stat, well, oh, hey, look, we leveled. I'm going to just quickly switch to like a +2 in my charisma. So I have 14 charisma, and now I can multi-class into Warlock, even though originally I couldn't. You know, that would be the biggest issue. So I would say if you look at multi-classing with this ability, I would say that you have to look at base stats without your Talei increases. That would be my way of looking at it, and I know people aren't going to like it, and I don't care. I don't have to like it. So that's the thing. And then finally, the last change that I would go for the B version is to change up the Great Minds. Now, this one I like a little more. You gain proficiency with the Arcana with a skill. With a skill of your choice, right? So you get a proficiency. You can change this proficiency during a long rest. Now this, and I will say this, would remove Silver Hands, Golden Negotiator, and Wood Feet, right? So I'm just immediately gonna throw those out while I talk about it. So pretty much what would happen is you would now get a proficiency. This is a slight nerf because originally you got 2, but now you get 1, which you can switch around at will. Kind of sticking with the idea of the Talei being interchangeable at will. I will say personally at that point, I do think I would also take away steel armor, right? I would take this away as well. I can even remove the page break at that point, which is kind of cool. So the Talei at that point would just be like you get 17 AC. So this would be kind of sticking to the idea of, hey, you know, you get to choose your proficiency. You get to kind of redistribute your body in order to become better at certain things. Maybe you make yourself look a little bit more intimidating. You can kind of imagine that with like spikes on the back or something. Maybe you make yourself a little bit better at stealth, right? You put these like little dampeners on the bottom of your souls. Maybe you make yourself better at sleight of hand. All of a sudden your fingers are a lot thinner and, you know, are able to, you maybe even like a little bit extendable so you can like go into someone's purse a little easier, stuff like that. All right, you can kind of go crazy with that, but that would kind of be reinforcing that idea where you can kind of reach or redistribute the way your body works in order to fit yourself for the perfect thing that you want to do, right? I know that a lot of people are probably just going to go like, hey, perception, and I'm not picking anything else, but you never know. If you know you're going to have a stealth mission the day after, you might as well go for a proficiency in stealth, for example. The advantage that this would also give over the previous version is in the previous version, you do have the downside of like, oh, hey, I picked up a bard and I have proficiency in persuasion, so why would I ever switch to the Talei? Because, you know, yay, you get proficiency with the persuasion skill. Woohoo. I don't know if this is good. It might be. This puts, like this version, the biggest problem I have with this version is it puts very little into the sub races. Actually makes me think that I should just like, you know, have a couple of abilities. Actually makes me think that I should just like switch this by like, you don't pick a sub race, you pick one of these abilities and you can switch that on a long rest and have like Silver Poisoning, Golden Friend, Nature's Friend, Steel Body, maybe a couple of other ones for like other Talei versions. So maybe I should do that then and kind of have like this invocation system of Warlock where you can pick one and you can change. And well, to be fair, Warlock isn't really able to switch it, but you know, you get the drift. You pick one ability from a list. And you can switch that during a long rest again. Kind of again making like the customization. Now again, I don't know how balanced this is. Actually, at that point, I might even move Dark Vision to that list. Rather than put it over here because that might be overtuned. This is very likely overtuned. I have no idea how balanced this is. I would have to try it out. I haven't yet. So, but that's the current version of the Talei. I am going to put a link in the description down below so you can kind of read it for yourself, the A and B versions of the current version. I'm also going to make sure that I have a link to, if you know, I change up stuff about the Talei, then I have a link to the current version and then a link to the version that was made here, so that you can maybe see if there's changes or something. I'm also probably going to make a change log because I personally just like having a change log. But other than that, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you have any opinions on this, by all means, leave a comment, right? If you want to see more of these, if you want to see more thoughts on Homebrew and whatnot, by all means, leave a like, you know, share with your friends. Make sure that I know that I should do more of these. If you think I shouldn't do more of these, then just ignore it and go on with your life, by all means. But yeah, so this has been the Talei Homebrew. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, this has been 7 Draws to 6. Until next time.